Right, before I moved to Australia, I honestly thought this Australia effect was just a bit of a joke on TikTok. You know, you leave the UK looking grey and tired like you've been thawed out of a Wetherspoons freezer in Gloucester, and then you arrive in Australia and 6 months later your skin is glowing, your hair is looking suspiciously healthier, and people assume you've discovered inner peace. But here's the thing, it actually happened to me. And in ways I never expected. My health, my energy, my confidence, even the way I see myself, all of it shifted after moving here. So in this video, I want to show you 5 real changes that turned my before into my after, and how they might actually be possible for you, even if you don't live in Australia. And hey mate, welcome back. If you're new here, I'm Sam, a British actor documenting my journey of rebuilding life in Australia. And we're on day 6 of our 12 Days of Christmas series. I'm very glad to have you here. Change number 1, Australia made me more productive and weirdly wealthier. Now in London, I struggled to build a voiceover business after I realised it was just as difficult as my theatre and screen acting career. So after a few months of being ashamed that I was having to dip into my savings to pay for rent, I took the course Editors Academy by Sam P. Dunn. He hasn't paid me to say this, but he's been such a brilliant mentor to me, and now he's a good friend. So if you wanted to look at that course, I'll leave it down below. And while I was spending 10-hour plus days absolutely working my butt off behind the same tiny little desk that was wedged right up to the wall in between our bed and the windowsill, within several months I had 5 to 6 different YouTuber clients who I was editing for. My 2 biggest clients, one of them had 1.6 million subscribers, the other had 6.9 million subscribers. But here's the kicker, I was still only making just enough money to pay for my living expenses, and I was struggling to do much else. And it's mad how difficult it is editing a YouTube video when you haven't seen sunlight since the 2012 London Olympics. And I had so much to be grateful for in London, I really did. But this is purely for the comparison of the fact that then I hop on a plane with my wife to Australia, and suddenly when the sunshine hits me and I smell the smell of sunscreen, and suddenly the work feels so much more doable. So much so that I start charging a bit more for my video editing, and then I'd be getting out for my run every single morning. And also the coffee was half the price that it would be in the UK for even better coffees. And all of the people I found myself surrounded by were so much more optimistic and positive about life compared to the people I'd been surrounded by back in the UK. And so you take all of these things and suddenly you roll into this productivity snowball. While I was taking on less freelance work, I was able to charge more and work with better clients who were more respectful and paid me better. And I was able to manage all of this freelance work that felt like chaos before and actually have free time left over in the evening. So basically it's crazy how your environment can completely impact your drive to work on your goals, or to work at your job even. But even if you're not in Australia, it's good to ask yourself, what small change could you make to your environment that would get some of these results? And just by having a bit of a brainstorm about it, you can start coming up with some major improvements to your life that you never even realized were there. And by the way, if you're enjoying this 12 Days of Christmas series, make sure to hit that like button so YouTube knows. Change number 2, I finally bet on myself and I had a career glow up. But then I realized all this time my big dream was to be a YouTuber myself and to make my own videos and to edit my own videos. But I've been endlessly working away building other people's dreams, building other people's YouTube channels and audiences, whilst my dreams sat in the Notes app on my computer and phone. So Australia gave me this brutal clarity that I need to take my YouTube channel seriously. And even if I've got a lot of video editing work from clients, I still need to post at least one video. So I'd post one video every week, and I was trying to do running content. And I'm only getting like a couple of 100 views on each one, which is still really awesome, but definitely not enough to be able to quit the freelance video editing. And so I post this video about the things I love about Australia, thinking it'll only get a few hundred views again. And then I check my phone that night and it's got like 5,000 views, and I go, so what? Like I've never ever seen that number on my own YouTube channel before. And then within a couple of days, it was on like 20,000 views. It was the first realization that I can do this, because there was a voice in the back of my head in the UK. You're not gonna do YouTube, mate. You're not gonna become a working actor. These are just dreams. But I moved to Australia and suddenly I'm starting to tell that little voice in my head to bugger off. And honestly, within like 4 or 5 weeks, I think I hit 10,000 subscribers. Thank you if you're one of them. If you're not, thank you for subscribing today. It means a lot. And I was overwhelmed, and I was looking at the numbers and I was thinking, I think I can quit freelance video editing permanently now. And here I am, still doing YouTube and acting as a career. And to be able to look out my window right now and see palm trees and hear the sounds of, Australian birds and crickets and things like that, even a possum in the evening, it does something to your work. Not only does it energize you, but I don't know, you just get this feeling of gratitude, and work just becomes, I'm not going to say easy, but it becomes more doable. It's just quite crazy to think that had I not moved here, I probably wouldn't have achieved all that. But the thing is, even if you're not in Australia, one of the most powerful questions you can ask yourself is, what work are you choosing to do that you don't have to do to, build other people's dreams, but you could spend that time building your own dreams? Change number 3, my appearance. Now, I know this is very vain, but I think it is an important mention because we all like a little bit of a cosmetic improvement. Now, back in the UK, the typical fashion for someone like myself is skin fade haircut, more skinny tight clothing, and you go to the pub every Friday and Saturday night and get absolutely sloshed. Well, as someone who had quit drinking in Japan, this wasn't the most ideal lifestyle for me. But then I moved to Australia, right? And I see a video by a British guy who moved to, I want to say, New Zealand. And he grew his hair out much longer in a style I really wanted myself. And so I thought, I'm going to give that a go. I mean, if he can do that in New Zealand, then surely I can do it in Australia. And much to my surprise, everyone just accepted me for having longer hair. Whereas in the UK, if I let my hair grow out just an inch or two longer than that really, really short army style short back and sides haircut, in the UK most of the people around me would be like, oh Sam, you need a haircut, mate, it's getting a bit long, don't you think? Look, I've had a few bad hair days since, but I do feel like it's an improvement on this photo here. Not only that, but you can clearly see from this before and after photo, my skin has improved massively. Ever since I was 15 years old, I'd really struggled with acne back in the UK, but then I moved to Australia and it is kind of weird that a lot of that acne disappeared. Of course, this is affected by a multitude of things like diet, fitness, even how hard the water is coming out of your tap. And so what I found, and that you can apply to your own life, even if you're not in Australia, is that surround yourself in people who are positive and uplifting and support your life choices, and not just support your life choices when it benefits them. If they actually cheer you on and the things that you're passionate about and excited about, even if you wouldn't do it yourself, those are the people you want to hold on to for the rest of your life. And by the way, if you are interested in moving to Australia, I actually have a free Move to Australia guide that you can download here. It's all of my knowledge condensed into several pages. So if that sounds good, there's either a QR code here or it's in a link in the description below. Change number 4, Australia forced me to become a proper adult. Basically, my whole life has been living in little studio apartments and little flats and things like that. But then I meet the love of my life, Maddie, who is an Australian. And so we decide we need a proper home of our own. We dive into the competitive rental property market of Brisbane. And after a few weeks of going to every single viewing with 10, 20, maybe even more people there and applying for quite a few different places, some lovely people take a chance on us and now we've got an apartment. Setting up all these different bills in Australia and then having to worry about cyclones and bushfires and heat waves and flash flooding, all things that could destroy your new home. And so my perspective completely reset in Australia, because before, smaller things like a flat tire or a hidden expense in the UK would have probably broken me for a few days. It would have really stressed me out, especially as I was very poor. But in Australia, with the gorgeous sunshine and the active lifestyle, and then I start getting into programming and I build automations that can do a load of digital tasks for me. A huge chunk of the cutting of video editing is now completely done for an automation that I built by hand and has turned 6-hour edits into like 2 hours, which is unbelievable. And I'm starting to gain control of my life. And through this gaining more control over my time and my life and being able to work from home in an office that is set in Australia, it feels more rewarding, because then after a hard day of work, I can turn my computer off after I've uploaded a video and I can go outside into the sunshine with the koalas and the wallabies, if I'm lucky enough to see one on my run. Oh, life just feels good. And I know a lot of this stuff might sound like common sense. I know it might sound like just the typical process of becoming an adult, but something about doing it in the gorgeous paradise of Australia seemed to make it not only a little bit easier, but I felt like I learnt the ropes a lot faster as well. Change number 5, I became fitter and healthier. I've been running ever since I was about 15 or 16 years old in the UK, and I never really took it that seriously. It was quite casual until I signed myself up to a marathon for near the start of 2024. My goal was to cross that finish line in under 3 hours and 30 minutes. And I got 3 hours 45 minutes. And I thought, that's okay, I'll train harder. And so I trained even harder, and I ran my second marathon that same year in the summer in the UK, and I got 3 hours 50, and I thought, what am I doing wrong? This is so frustrating. And so Maddie and I, we moved to Australia, right? And I'm like, right, I really want to achieve this goal of 3 hours, 30 minutes or less. That would, I'd feel so happy. And I get to Brisbane and I go for one of my first runs, and I realize it is brutal here. The hills are like this. We're not talking about normal city and town terrain where it's just like, you know, the odd hill here and there. We're talking brutally steep ones. Not only that, but it is tropical weather conditions. The heat reaches way over 35 degrees most days. It is humid. You are just dripping in sweat even if you go for a walk. It is brutal. Anyway, I go back to the UK in December to see my family for Christmas, and I sign up for the Portsmouth Marathon. It's a flat coastal marathon. And the day of the race, I crossed the start line when the start gun went off, and I thought to myself, wow, it is bitterly cold. But then I realized it's also very flat here, and I'm running and I'm running and I'm running, and I cross the finish line and I do it in 3 hours 28 minutes. And while many more people have ran many more marathons faster than that, it was a huge personal achievement. I was over the moon. It felt like euphoria. But I realized the reason for this was not only because I took out a slightly more difficult training plan, but because I was training in brutal conditions in Brisbane. Australia gave me that. A lot of people would see that as a downside, but for me, it was an absolute benefit. And had I not been training with the steep hills of Brisbane, I would not have achieved that personal best. I know that for a fact. So it kind of made me realize that sometimes you do need to sweat to have a bit of growth. And although that sounds like a bit of a cliche from a 90s sports film, it's true. And so that's made me realize, even if I do live in the UK again in the future, I need to push myself, and I need to push myself like Brisbane would push me. But sometimes giving yourself a bit of a challenge, it can go a long way in helping you achieve those goals. And if you want to keep this adventure going, don't click away yet. Go watch this video here all about the things that I never expected to miss from the UK when I moved to Australia, but now miss so much. So click that. I'll see you over there and see you in the next one.